How many times do you think I've called you? If you can hear me, at least respond. Ignoring your parents is disrespectful. Get out.
Scott was yelling at his stepson, Tyler, who's partially deaf. What are you doing? Stop it! I couldn't help but intervene, holding Tyler as he sobbed and stared down. Even when I asked what happened, Tyler just trembled and said nothing. Something was wrong. Believing so, I said, I'll take care of him for now, and took Tyler home. My name is Kate. I used to work as a craftsman at the U.S. branch of a globally renowned Swiss watchmaker. Due to deteriorating eyesight and back pain, making long hours of seated work difficult, I retired from the front lines of craftsmanship upon reaching retirement age. Thankfully, I was asked,
We definitely want you to continue working with us even after retirement. It would be a shame to see you go with your talents.
Now I work as a trainer, teaching young watchmakers. I believe I have led a good life. I'm grateful not only for having found a job I can immerse myself in, but also for the good relationships and my lovely daughter, Christina, I formed there. When I was fully occupied with motherhood, the image of a working mother wasn't common. Yet both my company and my husband supported me generously. Christina was an easy child, seldom fussy or prone to tantrums. Christina eventually became independent, married a college sweetheart, and lightened my burden. Later, she gave birth to a son named Tyler. To me, Tyler is my grandson, a wonderfully uncomplicated and adorable child. Both Christina and Ben, as well as my husband Robert and I, showered him with love. My life seemed to be progressing smoothly, but of course, not everything continued so perfectly. The first incident occurred when Tyler was still a toddler, developing a middle ear infection that led to permanent partial deafness as a complication. It was heartbreaking that a child so young had to endure such a disability, but what concerned me even more was Christina's reaction to the news. Christina was terribly distraught, and when I went to check on her, she spent days crying while watching Tyler play with a toy car. At that time, Ben was still alive, busy with work but firmly supporting Christina. Eventually, Christina regained her composure and returned to her normal state. Later, she lived peacefully with Ben and Tyler. They looked like a happy couple and family to anyone observing. However, everything changed after Ben suddenly died of a stroke. Losing her beloved husband, Christina seemed deeply shocked. At first, she coped, but after Ben's memorial service, she began to act strangely. She was no longer capable of handling household chores or daily tasks. When I visited, the house was a mess, and the kitchen was piled with dirty dishes of unknown origin. Christina was either wrapped in a blanket, staring blankly, or crying as if suddenly remembering something. In such a state, she obviously couldn't care for Tyler properly. When I visited, Tyler hadn't bathed for days and had only been eating snack bread. Christina had become like a large child herself. Worried about both Christina and Tyler, I visited Christina's house frequently, despite Robert telling me I was being overprotective. Eventually, Christina recovered from her mental depression, but then began to immerse herself in work as if escaping from reality. Having lost her husband, who was mainly providing for the family, Christina felt a pressing need to earn money and fill in as a father for Tyler. Although I was glad she had recovered, the balance between work and parenting was clearly off, so I continued to worry about them. While working, I visited Christina and Tyler, looking after Tyler and sometimes cooking his dinner to cover for Christina working late. Over time, Christina came to rely on me more, increasingly neglecting her home. One day I waited for Christina to return and sternly reprimanded her. You're neglecting your role as a mother right now. I understand you're desperately trying to replace Ben, but consider Tyler's feelings too. He's lonely without a father. I spoke harshly, but it was true. Christina broke down crying, saying, It's hard to look at Tyler because he resembles Ben so much. I'm scared that it's my fault he became partially deaf. I understand your pain, but please, just pay a little more attention to Tyler. I said this, comforting Christina with a hug. A few months later, just after Tyler's 9th birthday, a change occurred in Christina's life when she met Scott Hansen. Scott was a young entrepreneur who had founded the online store GoGo Shopping, and he was seriously dating Christina, a single mother. When Christina confided to me that she was considering remarriage with Scott, I was pleased, thinking this could help her take a new step forward, possibly caring more for her home life. Most delightfully, Scott seemed to genuinely care for Tyler. At a joint family dinner, Tyler seemed to have taken a liking to Scott. They played together, looking very much like a real father and son. Soon after, they held a wedding. Tyler, holding hands with Christina and Scott, shyly walked down the aisle. They looked like a holy family, radiant and hopeful. I silently prayed for them to find happiness, also for Ben's sake. However, I would soon realize that this happiness was an illusion. A few months after the wedding, I approached Christina's house with a joyous heart, carrying a secretly made gift, a watch. I had crafted watches of the same design in different colors, each fitting Scott, Christina, and Tyler to commemorate their becoming a family. With a mix of anticipation and slight nervousness, I rang the bell, but there was no response. Could they not hear it? I wondered, using my key to enter. Then an unbelievable scene unfolded before me. The house was as neglected as shortly after Ben's death, but that wasn't all. In the middle of the cluttered floor, Tyler was sobbing terribly. Scott stood over him, commanding, while Christina pretended nothing was wrong. They hadn't noticed me yet. I reflexively held my breath and watched from the shadows.
How many times do you think I've called you? If you can hear me, at least respond. Ignoring your parents is disrespectful. Get out.
Scott was in a fury, yelling at Tyler. Unable to stand it anymore, I opened the door and rushed to Tyler, embracing him as he sobbed, and looked up at Scott. What are you doing? Stop it. Scott glared back, eyes narrowed. Without a word, Christina dropped a bombshell. It's part of his education. Scott isn't doing anything wrong. What do you mean? No matter how much I pressed, Christina only insisted. It's Tyler's fault for ignoring Scott. That can't be right. No matter the reason, it's wrong to yell at a child like that. Then, from my arms, Tyler said, It's not like that, Grandma. His voice shook with tears. It's my fault. I'm a bad kid. Listen, Tyler. Grandma knows you're not a bad kid. If something's wrong, you can tell me. I'll listen. Even as I spoke gently, perhaps out of fear of Scott, Tyler only shook his head vehemently. He almost spoke up once, but stopped under Scott's piercing gaze. Frozen, he clung tightly to my arm, trembling. Something was very wrong. More than just being yelled at, I suspected he might also be suffering physical abuse. Convinced, I declared, I'll be taking care of him for now, and lifted Tyler in my arms. Hey, what do you think you're doing, you old hag? As Scott moved to grab me, Christina held him back, saying, Let it be. They exchanged a meaningful look. Sensing something sinister but prioritizing Tyler's safety over a confrontation, I left Christina's house. During the ride home, Tyler cried silently. When I asked if he had eaten dinner, he didn't respond. Realizing he might not hear me from the driver's side to his impaired right ear, a dark cloud of worry formed in my heart. Praying my suspicion was unfounded, I drove on silently. At home, I first bathed Tyler in a warm tub. Meanwhile, Robert and I prepared dinner. After his bath, Tyler wore one of Robert's jackets as pajamas, which was far too large for him. During dinner, after a long conversation, Tyler gradually began to share what had happened. Scott had been kind at first, but changed once they started living together. The trouble began when Tyler couldn't bring himself to call Scott Dad. Since then, Scott has taken every opportunity to be harsh. One time, when Tyler didn't respond because he couldn't hear, Scott exploded. You can hear me. Answer me. Do you hate me that much? It turned out Tyler couldn't hear because Scott had spoken to his impaired right ear, but Scott wouldn't accept that he could only hear from the other side. Since then, Scott had repeatedly spoken into his impaired ear and then scolded him for not responding. Scott had wanted a relationship like lovers with Christina, wishing for a life mostly with her, sidelining Tyler. Recently, both Scott and Christina had treated Tyler as an inconvenience, often leaving him alone to go drinking late into the night, returning without even feeding him. It's a terrible story. The more I heard, the more pitiable Tyler seemed, and I was heartbroken. Accepting that my own daughter could do such things was difficult, but I couldn't believe Tyler was lying. There seemed to be no way to defend her actions. That night, after Tyler had fallen asleep, I called Christina. I wanted to hear from her whether what Tyler had said was true. Christina readily admitted everything. She confessed to the harsh treatment Scott had given Tyler, her own willful ignorance of it, and their nights out leaving Tyler alone. If that's the case, I can't send Tyler back to you. I'll raise him at my place. If you two can live your lives, you'll be happy too. Though my words were tingered with sarcasm, Christina simply nodded and fell silent. Wanting to scold her for lacking maternal affection and responsibility, I held back as I sensed Tyler waking. I ended the call. The next morning, I talked to Tyler. You can stay with Grandma if you want. I'm worried about sending you back, so it would comfort me if you stayed. Tyler immediately nodded. Surprised by his quick response, I asked, Are you sure? You might not see your mom or Scott again.
That's okay. Mom and Uncle Scott probably hate me.
His words pained my heart. Tyler never returned to Christina's house after packing his things. Robert and I decided to formally adopt him. From then on, our days were peaceful and lively. Now retired, Robert cooked daily, his newfound cooking skills not perfect, but always delicious and comforting. Tyler and I cooked together on his days off, and we went fishing and camping on holidays. Despite the abrupt change in his initial tension, Tyler's face grew calmer day by day, and he began to smile more. Then one day I received a transfer order from the Swiss headquarters. It was a promotion with a salary increase, and considering Tyler's future, it wasn't a bad option. Thus, the three of us moved to Switzerland. In Switzerland, Tyler started attending after-school sign language and IT classes with other children who are hard of hearing. Although everyone struggled with the unfamiliar French at first, Tyler quickly mastered it and became the most fluent speaker among us. I had always thought of Tyler as a quiet child, but that was only because he had been suppressed in that previous home. In reality, he was talkative and cheerful, a side of him I was delighted to discover. After moving to Switzerland, Tyler became decidedly more proactive. It wasn't so much a change as a return to his true self. He also developed an interest in watches and began visiting my workplace frequently. Initially, he wouldn't stray far from me, but gradually he started to approach other craftsmen and watched their techniques intently. Tyler, affectionately called Ty by everyone, was adored and doted on by all. A decade passed, and Tyler grew from a little boy into a fine young man. He became involved in the development of next-generation hearing aids, and his achievements were even featured in international journals. His hearing aid caught the attention of American companies, leading to a partnership. As Tyler flourished, I began to feel the effects of aging, making work increasingly difficult. With Tyler's career path secure and considering my retirement, we decided it was time to return to the U.S. Fortunately, Tyler's hearing aids were highly acclaimed. They not only provided clear hearing, but also blocked ambient noise and amplified voices from the directions the wearer was looking, which drew widespread praise. As one of the developers, Tyler was invited for a live TV interview. Proudly, he stated,
This device was inspired by my mother's craftsmanship in watchmaking, combined with IT. It wouldn't have been possible without the artisans who inspired its development and the parents who enveloped me with their warm love. I am truly grateful.
Tyler was now more proficient in French than English, so he spoke through an interpreter. Hearing his words on TV filled my heart to the brim, and Robert's eyes welled up with tears as he watched. However, the TV interview took an unexpected turn when Christina and Scott suddenly appeared on the scene. Faking being involved parents, they showed emotional support by holding Tyler's hand.
Tyler, it's so nice to see you at last. Let's head home together with me, your dad.
You've done so well, Tyler. They acted as if it was a touching reunion of a long-separated family. Watching anxiously, Tyler asked for the interpreter's help and said without changing his expression,
Hello. You're the ones who abandoned me. It's been 10 years, hasn't it? How's go-go shopping doing these days?
The couple's faces froze. Tyler, about the hearing aids, your dad's site could exclusively sell them. She tried to salvage the situation, but Tyler continued in French, deliberately maintaining a formal distance.
Unfortunately, this product is tied up in a project to be distributed free of charge to hearing-impaired children, thanks to donation from kind-hearted people. I can't give it to the parents who abandoned me. Besides, my parents are Kate and Robert, not you two.
But look, this watch. Isn't it the matching one, right?
Right, Tyler? Remember?
They showed him a luxury watch I had given him. Tyler slowly shook his head.
That watch doesn't match mine.
Saying so, Tyler pulled a pendant from his neck. The watch was one I had completely rebuilt after he came to our home, changing all parts so he wouldn't remember them. Tyler had realized this later and had always kept it close, wearing it as a pendant when it no longer fit his wrist.
I've never thought of you as my parents. Could you please not talk to me anymore?
His firm declaration and the interpreter, initially translating hesitantly, began to speak louder as the story unfolded. Overwhelmed, Christina and Scott awkwardly disappeared from the screen. Following the interview, Go-Go Shopping was flooded with criticism and complaints, leading to its rapid closure. The interview catapulted Tyler to fame as a young man who overcame adversity to achieve success. He received numerous job offers from both domestic and international sources. Now he runs his own company, tirelessly working for children with hearing impairments. Busy as a global entrepreneur, Tyler still wears the small watch I made, shining around his neck. Back in the US, Robert and I live a relaxed life, always looking forward to Tyler's visits, bringing gifts from his travels.